We will touch on throwing 2 top 25 courses in Pennsylvania, being woken up by the cops, our stay in Jamaica, Queens, and the worst problem we noticed while attending the 2023 Disc Golf World Championship. This is a story of an uncle and his nephew who put their life on hold to live in a 2011 Town & Country minivan and follow the Disc Golf Pro Tour for 3 months that would involve thousands of miles, 4 dgpt stops, 2 majors, way too much gas station pizzas, and a disc golf channel. It's Swiss Cheese, the one with all the holes in his game, alongside me, the one who doesn't, Jefferson. And we're both with the Disc Golf World. In this series, we will chronicle the different dgpt stops, the insane courses we're able to throw, food, fans, and pros we encounter, the beauty we witness, and all the hilarious stories that only tour life can bring. I want to take a brief moment. Thanks for taking the time to watch and for all the support from our first episode of this series. Now let's just jump in already. One of the weirdest things while touring is how antsy you become in a single location. You quickly grow tired of the same parking lot with the same dystopian scenery, even if you are sharing the lots with pros. The moment the routes returning from events become too familiar, the road begins to beckon you to the next location. Here we are on the road for no more than a week. We are all ready to kick off to the next location like some veteran roadie on tour. With many pros dropping out of the Jim Palmery AFDO, we quickly adjusted the itinerary to skip that stop and focus our trek eastward towards Vermont, find some courses to toss along the way, and spend some time visiting family. Despite constantly writing, recording, or editing content throughout the trip, we always made time to hit courses of interest along the way. And if the route allowed us to hit the state's top courses, we made sure to do so. We lived on UDisc, especially their top 100 courses. Funny thing is, though, we only looked at their rank and proximity to our route. Didn't do any research, didn't read any reviews, and never knew what to expect going in. Quickly realized that there was a top 15 course in Failer Lake in eastern Pennsylvania, which just coincidentally was on our way to New York for a family stop. Hit the GPS for Beaver Springs that morning, knowing we would be hitting another course on the way. From there, it was where the road, life, and fate took us. In western Pennsylvania, as the gas tank began to lean towards E, we felt there wasn't a better time than now to hit a course and look at some of the closest stops. Unfortunately, we passed one of the best and oldest in the state in Lakeview Disc Golf Course at Marion State Park an hour ago. 24th on UDisc, top 100, and a spot ahead of one of our favorites, the Canyons in Illinois, quickly becoming a no-brainer. We turned that van around faster than a dad who gets up at 5:30 every morning to commute an hour and a half to some bullshit job so he can afford to take his ungrateful wife and kids who can't shut up on vacation for 2 hours into a 10-hour car ride. As much as hitting the course was great to break the grind of writing, we never stopped filming, and these rounds would be no different. Which, funny enough, was some of my lowest moments in disc golf, including this very first round. Make sure none of you watch that over on JK channel. My game vanished early on tour. Not sure if it was throwing less often or the fact it happens to many of us at times. My yips just so happened to be on some of the greatest courses on the planet and released on YouTube for the entire world to see.
The entire time Swiss is driving, I would be in the passenger seat editing. We left having one established upload date, which was Twig on Fridays. After Deglow, we then added the weekend wrap-up to the schedule, and soon we decided to make Wednesday an upload day. Why? I don't know. Guess we just wanted to give you guys more content. Not only that, but we were also trying on-the-course content on another channel. We live by the saying, always be recording, and that was only the beginning of it. But first, we got to play another top 100 course.
Lakeview was a mostly wooded track with elevation throughout. It then opens up to some grassy long open holes with some of the best views of Lake Arthur later in the round. Hole 15 downhill with that view is worth a stop alone if you're nearby. Yet the early holes in the woods are what makes this course great. Plenty of shot shaping, and at the time when we were throwing, the rough was not too punishing. And Lakeview, for the ones keeping track, did edge out Toboggan for the trip thus far. We took a moment to appreciate Lake Arthur and some of the other Lake Marion highlights, got back on the road to land in Beaver Springs by nightfall. And when you're driving across country, there come points where the scenery and route sets you in the right mood. Driving through rural Pennsylvania, going through isolated single-road towns, farms, and rolling hills near sunset was one of the better vibe drives while on the road. We pull into Planet Fitness in Lewisburg, PA, just outside Failer Lake. Shower, set the van up, park near some semis in the dark part of the lot, and go to bed ready for the next day. Only to be woken up to a flashlight aggressively rattling on the window at 5 in the morning. Groggy, somewhat angry, I throw open the door to a man who can best be described as a love child of Paul Blart and Bubbles, aggressively saying we can't sleep there. Finally got my shit together enough to realize the issue was that we were no longer parked in front of the Planet Fitness and had to move 2 lanes over if we wanted to sleep there. This boss hoss Wiggum had us and 2 other semis move 2 literal damn lanes over just to be able to rest. Absolutely wild. Made fun of Jefferson's fight or flight response to conflict on the road while he play slept the entire time, and came to the realization I would need to protect myself if need be moving forward, and slept with the pot we used for cooking and reached from there on out.
What Swiss is forgetting to tell you is that he's hidden on the ground in the back with a blanket on him, while I'm in the passenger seat facing the window the cop is pounding on. If anything, it's impressive how I kept the composure for as long as I did. Either way, it's too early in the morning for me to be awake.
The only benefit was getting us an early start to the day, enjoying some early morning scenery, becoming more isolated on the drive, because this course is in the middle of nowhere. As we near Failure Lake on the GPS, you realize this might be one of the best entrances onto a disc golf property. You dead end into a lake with a parking lot and what will be a future shop that was currently under construction. Dead ass, the parking lot and shop overlook a lake that is completely surrounded by hills and mostly untouched nature. And when the lake is motionless, it completely mirrors the landscape sky and clouds above. Even with a slightly overcast morning where the sun had yet to creep out, it was still beautiful. Breathtaking to say the least, especially when you come to the course blind like we had, only knowing the ranking and nothing else. And though I may have just ruined that same experience by sharing it, it was too stunning to remain silent. We jumped on one and played the shapely open layout with some choice guardian trees. Some may even consider these wooded holes if you're from Kansas. As you're playing, you barely notice the incline you are making. After nearly a third of the way through the course and having a number of big courses played in my career, the thoughts of this course ranking too high began to creep in. The holes were great, challenging, maintained, and near Tour Series level. Especially hole 1. I was still looking for the teeth or signature holes that top 20 courses bring. And after our drives on hole 5, I started to pepper Jefferson to gauge his thoughts.
Only for me to tell Swiss to shut up while approaching 6 as I pulled out the camera for us to gasp. Hole 15 at Lakeview was only my favorite hole for 14 hours, as this over 1,000-foot monster on a mountain hands down is number 1.
Standing atop a ledge, the gray overcast skies from the morning cleared and opened to a vibrant blue with clouds above as the sun shined over the mirrored lake, the remainder of the course, endless untouched rolling hills, and the valley below. Hands down the most scenic hole that I've experienced in my disc golf lifetime. It's funny that disc golf and chasing a dream allowed me to experience a moment that happens a few times in everyone's lifespan. An instant of self-reflections when looking upon the world. And to have my nephew there alongside me in this journey and moment, it made it all the more special.
You know the course is something else when the person skipping tees still finds it enjoyable. Sorry, Swiss, couldn't let that slide. I'll cut him some slack though. When you're playing doubles, there is little reason for him to throw off the 1,000-foot tees. Jokes aside, Failure Lake is my favorite disc golf course without question. It's everything I love about disc golf. It feels like an isolation from the rest of the world, completely in the middle of nowhere, yet feels like it was crafted perfectly for a disc golf course. Not in the sense of tee pads, benches, or other amenities, rather the nature around it fit the course seamlessly. The trails that lead you perfectly the direction you need to be without a single sign, or the gaps cut from the woods that opened a window that overlooked the lake and the beauty of the entire course. Just to go into an open field reminding you of the rest of the world. I know I'm a disc golf nerd, but to me, it was a paradise. Like Swiss said, an opportunity of self-reflection for a lost 22-year-old fresh college graduate that only had one dream since he was 16.
Crazy enough, this course has not one, but 2 top-of-the-world shots worked in, with hole 15 being the second. Add a picture window scenic backdrop finish on hole 12 that would simply be good enough on its own. But the course also has water carries, tunnel shots, the 2 sets of stairs engineering alone is an impressive feat, and make sure you don't sleep on hole 8. But I'm a total sucker for an open hole with a wooded gap finish. The wild thing is that this is a must-stop course that leaves you breathless multiple times, and you have to allow it to soak in. And the funny thing is, as you walk it, you realize it's still in its infancy and has room to grow even better. If you ever have the opportunity, it's worth the drive and a must-stop for all. Failure Lake instantly moved up to the top course on the tour at that point. And the funny thing is, the hole at that time, with a tournament on its way, had a pin finishing on the peninsula on 18. And after that, we had a great conversation with the construction guy, Larry, who lived in Beaver Springs his entire life and looked like he would be blown away by the internet. Was flabbergasted 2 people came all the way from Wisconsin to his little old town to throw some frisbees. And was shocked to hear us say it was rated the 14th best course in the world. From there, we jumped back on the road to head to Jamaica, Queens to visit my wife's closest aunt for a much-needed recharge before we made our way to Worlds. In all honesty, sleeping in a bed, full benefits of a private bath, and a chance to do laundry because things were beginning to get ripe didn't hurt either. My wife and her aunt are from Jamaica, so the 3 days were filled with family, patties, jerk chicken, curry goat, bula, ackee and sawfish, and all the spice that my Swanson stomach nephew could handle. A few days later, we left Queens after some bagels schmear at the Bagel Oasis. So good I felt the need to mention it on the way to Vermont. Drove through the Appalachias, witnessed the beginning stages of fall as the leaves just began to change color, and ended the day with us arriving at the nearest Planet Fitness and home for several days, about 50 minutes down the mountains from Smuggler's Notch for what would be our third world championship. Vermont is interesting. You are surrounded by mountain views that only Bob Ross can do justice, and maple syrup. A magical place where old hippies and rednecks cohabitate together peacefully. Maybe it's the winters, good food, better beer, or the fact that living in some isolated towns where the gas stations are also grocery stores, you need to stick together. But the people are exceptional. The drives alone to Smuggler's Notch never disappointed. And when I mean alone, Jefferson slept in the passenger seat as I drove to the course, greeted with the brisk early morning sun and glimpses of rolling fog over the mountains and valleys as it slowly disappeared as the sun warmed up. You bend around tight streets and corners as you make your way to the ski resort property. And if you have time, make sure to stop at Cupboard's Deli. The parking lot was off-site and people were shuttled by bus to the course. Jefferson stayed to finish wrapping up an edit, and I jumped on the bus to get my first glimpse of the famed property. Just so happened to be alongside future world champion Isaac Robinson when he mistakenly parked in the wrong lot that day. Just yet another weird nugget from tour. And trust me in saying, there's even better ones than that.
It was at the World Championships that we decided to bring back the daily round recaps we did 4 years ago at the 2019 Worlds. Instead, in our new style. This meant straight from the round, we would go to Panera, script the rounds for both divisions, record in whatever parking lot was quietest, and straight to editing. Well, at least as much as I could because I had to wait for the B-roll footage which was posted the next morning. I stayed in the van for most of the FPO rounds and would catch Swiss for some of the MPO. Day 2 sucked because Swiss had to script Twig and the round recap, which meant I had to edit both of them by the next day, only for us to catch the rounds later. Oh, and to mention, it was raining, so the rounds were delayed, so everything we were doing had to be postponed. Nothing is ever easy.
Smuggler's Notch property was amazing and deserves to be alongside the greats around the world. Yet it was a far more confined spectator area than what we have grown accustomed to from our previous world experiences in Peoria, Illinois and Emporia, Kansas. With a squished-in area that featured what would be considered a mini fly mart, a fortress of porta potties, small watch area, and a couple of food vendors. Now, I want to disclose at this moment that this was the first stop where we had to purchase spectator passes, with it being a PDGA event. So I know that sounds as petty as I hear it coming out of my mouth. Here we have enjoyed stops with free full media access, and now we have to pay. Woe as me. And trust, with the amount of workload we put on ourselves for this world, with daily recaps, getting on the course shots, writing, recording, and editing, this trip was more business than spectator enjoyment from our other past worlds. I wanted to make that clear because it might have been my worst world's experience out of the 3. And it wasn't due to the reasons above, but due to the sour taste left by the spectator pass and all that it included. Made me realize what might become the worst problem for disc golf in the future. The base spectators pass allowed for limited access and views of holes, and on the Brewster Ridge course only gave you access to the first and final hole, as the rest of the course was only allowed for VIPs. I'm certainly willing to listen to the arguments of the area being tight woods and with poor conditions wanted to limit the foot traffic. And I want to acknowledge the passes made clear that there would be limited access at Brewster Ridge. So certainly Fox Meadow being more open wouldn't be the same, right? Wrong. Only VIPs were allowed to follow with the cards, had separate routes across the entire course, and even confined non-VIPs to spectate atop a ridge. However, the drive of VIP tickets, which were sold out, and the demands of making that product worthwhile meant the non-VIPs were left with obstructed views on an open course. I get that dgpt needs to make money, but seems contrarian to the principles of the game. The product, for the most part, is behind a paywall already, and VIP access at live events takes away from the approachability from the sport's beginnings. That first Worlds we attended only cost $30, came with a disc and equal access to all. Players weren't shifted to signing areas like cattle and could be approached for an interview anywhere after the round, even while they're smoking a heater. The prime spots were claimed by those who had a chair, cooler, and dedicated enough to arrive the earliest, and not by the fatness of your wallet. And yes, the VIP passes at the tour stops, for the most part, are worth the additional cost, especially when attending multiple days. Just feels worse when it's at a Worlds and on a small confining area with thousands of people. Now that I got that off my chest, the ones who feel that I'm an old man yelling at the clouds, I would tell you I'm not the only one. Go check out Wild Run's vid for his own feedback.
Now I spent more time in the minivan than spectating Worlds. It was still cool to be part of the final day though. We all knew Isaac was going to win, but the atmosphere of Worlds will never be beaten. It was also pretty cool to watch hole 5 at Fox Meadows since it was one of the only holes we were able to spectate at. And for everyone who doubted that I was going to get the birdie, here you go, park job in the Crocs too. We also got to see Isaac's second major win in person and another piece of Tatar's eventual Grand Slam. Swiss and I did get a chance to play the courses too, which was fun to compare ourselves to the pros on the courses they played. Unfortunately, we played them in probably the worst conditions it's seen from the hundreds of people walking on it the past 5 days in the rain. Nevertheless, it was fun, but if I'm going to be honest, mid. But that could just because of the bangers we played before it, and I was ready to get out of Vermont and get to the next stop.
The tour continues when we hit the best courses the entire Northeast can offer. Yeah, and even Maine. Jefferson throws the Glitch World Championships, iCaddy. We finally spectate a round with famous 8 holes, Fenway, a Simon interview, and our biggest we made it moment. And that wraps up the second stop of our tour stories. If you stayed this long and you aren't subscribed, make sure to do so. While you're at it, like and share. And if you enjoyed and haven't seen the first episode of this series or any other of our vast content, make sure to do so.